Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. And with the Premier League still not having started, as it only finished a week ago, today starts our first in a series of topical videos. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Bruno Fernandes and his potential transfer away from Manchester United. So let's get into it. Bruno Fernandes is subject to links with Al-Hilal in the Saudi League. The Saudi League has gained in popularity since Cristiano Ronaldo left Manchester United to go there a couple of seasons ago. And following him has been a line of players from Europe of varying ages. So, for example, Ruben Neves from Wolves went. And I would have assumed before the Saudi League really started to collect players, like Thanos was collecting Infinity Stones. That's what it was, Infinity Stones. Ruben Neves is somebody I would have expected to be at like a Newcastle, a Manchester United, if they were actually performing to a level that one would hope, if not expect. An Arsenal, those seem like natural fits for him. But I digress. Bruno Fernandes is subject to links with Al Hilal, with the potential transfer being anything between 80 to 120 million pounds. So the question is, will he go or will he stay? Or rather, should he go or should he stay? Ultimately, I'm a fan of Mr. Fernandes. What about the big picture? What suits the player best, the fans best, and I guess ultimately the club? If he stays and doesn't play well next season, and by well I mean beat his best season at the club in terms of numbers, he's going to have the fact that the club didn't cash in on him, or he didn't want to leave, hanging over him until he leaves the club eventually. But if Bruno Fernandes does leave, are the club able to replace him sufficiently? Looking at the transfers in the post Alex Ferguson era, Bruno Fernandes may be one of the very few players who's actually been a good signing. The irony. Um, Manchester United would not just be replacing a player, a a player who has been their most consistent in attacking output for a few years now, but also the club captain. So it's not just a player who is going to lead the team going forward. Bruno Fernandes will be 31 in about 3 months. So this does kind of feel like a bit of a crossroads. Born in Maia in northern Portugal, Fernandes, who was the captain of Sporting Club at the time, moved in January transfer window to Manchester United on the 29th of January 2020. A time in our lives that I don't think any of us will forget from multiple reasons anytime soon. Manchester United paid 65 million euros for Fernandes, which represented a profit of 55.3 million euros for Sporting Club when they brought him back to Portugal from Italy, paying Sampdoria 9.7 million euros. Absolute bargain. In his first season at Manchester United, Fernandes only played 14 matches in the Premier League, winning 9 and drawing 5, so he didn't lose. He also made an immediate impact with 8 goals and 7 assists, beating his expected goals, his XG, by 1.8, and his expected assisted goals, XAG, by 4. So you can imagine, there was a good amount of excitement around him, a lot of buzz, who is this guy we've signed? Is he going to be just a good following season? Are we now going to win the title? And, well, we haven't, have we? So the next season, 2021 season, Manchester United finished second in the league, and Fernandes was able to continue his goal scoring form. In the Premier League, he managed to score 18 goals and provide 12 assists. When you then include European matches, and we should note that in this season, Manchester United fell out of the Champions League due to poor performance, not being good enough, not enough points, not enough goals, whatever you want to pick, and fell into the Europa League, which they lost in the final 11-10 on penalties. Bruno ended up with a tally of 27 goals from an expected XG of 23.6 and 17 assists from an XAG of 17.8. When putting his stats together for all three competitions, it should be said that the Europa League final was 120 minutes long, hence the need for the penalty shootout. But all of the minutes played gives us 47.5 matches when you divide all the minutes paid up by 90. So that means that Bruno Fernandes actually scored a goal every other game. Pretty handy for a midfielder. This season, to say that Manchester United have been poor would be something of an oversimplification. There are rough estimations out on the internet, which you can Google, of how much each club pays in terms of salaries to its first team squad. I'll link an example below. But what does seem clear from all of the sites I've seen is that Manchester United comfortably pay in the top five of those amounts, or the highest amounts. So for a playing squad to arguably be the fifth highest paid and to finish 15th in the league, it just doesn't look like the club actually is getting much value for money. So this season started with Manchester United as the current FA Cup winners, which is why they got into the Europa League, but ended, well, we know how it ended, 15th, and losing to Tottenham in the Europa League final. And when watching Manchester United, Fernandes is at the heart of everything good that they do. The team are clearly looking to get him on the ball at every available opportunity. And this is denoted by the fact that in every match he plays, and by plays I don't mean like a substitute appearance was 20 minutes, but every match where he plays a good amount of minutes, like at least 75, he usually has the most touches of the ball. Looking at the raw numbers, because that's why we're here, right? And including the Premier League and the Europa League, Fernandes has scored 15 goals and claimed 14 assists this season. But that leaves him 1.8 below his XG and 1.4 below his XAG. Again, like his first full season, there was a match in the Europa League where he played 120 minutes, but all the minutes on the pitch gives us 47.7 matches played. So just 0.2 matches extra. Outside outside of the team performance being worse or woeful, whichever adjective you want to use, this season would have been a good measure of comparison and a way to compare his numbers over the course of a few seasons. So Bruno Fernandes is down by 14 goals and 3 assists. Now, can this be explained by the season his team had? Taking age out of the equation, do you expect or believe, and I mean believe but not literal delusion, that the team will perform well enough for Fernandes's output to have a significant increase in goals? I for one will not be holding my breath. So to use a table as a bit of an illustration, in the Premier League, this is a player who hasn't managed to break 20 goals and assists since his first full season. So that's 4 seasons in a row. Then we start to think of his age and the potential fee of selling him. Again, I am a fan of Bruno Fernandes, and I think he will be remembered fondly whenever he does go, because in hindsight, you can kind of look at things and objectively think, was that actually good? and I think in hindsight he will be looked at favourably by a lot of people. But the argument is now the right time to ask him to leave and say, hey, look, thank you, but the sun is setting. When comparing Fernandes to De Bruyne, who Manchester City are letting go at the end of his contract, and online there is quite a lot of talk about him going to Napoli, interestingly, you can see that when De Bruyne's numbers start to drop, City have just walked away. And there are nuances here. So in the 2021 season, De Bruyne played 25 matches, so less than Fernandes. And we are talking about in the league specifically. And in the 23-24 season, he played 18. And still with that in mind, Manchester City let him go for nothing. But you can see that there has been a drop in his output. So my conclusion would be, and I say this with what would be a very heavy heart, would be to sell Bruno Fernandes. I almost think with the couple of weeks this has all been kind of going on, as in talk about it happening, I have actually come to the conclusion that, yeah, okay, he is going to go. And assuming that the fee is 100 million, the club could insist on all of it being paid upfront in a similar fashion to what they did with Cristiano Ronaldo when he moved to Real Madrid, and then reinvest the money back into the playing squad. With the way clubs account for money coming in and player amortization, technically, if they could buy a player and agree to pay £10 million or euros of his transfer fee in his first year, they could buy one £100 million player or multiple players with a £10 million deposit. I mean, yes, you could sign 10 players, but I just don't think the club would manage to buy and sell 10 players in a transfer. I don't think the player could buy and sell up to 10 players, let alone just bring 10 players in. I actually might be worth checking to see what's the amount of players from the senior squad who've come in and out of the club in one season. So, unfortunately, I may not be getting to see Bruno Fernandes in a red shirt again, but that wraps up today's episode. And I have just the one question: will Bruno Fernandes stay, or will he wave and go? Get your opinion in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one.